Hi, and welcome to a Sober Girls podcast. My name is Sherry, and I have been through various ups and downs over my time in sobriety. The one thing I love about my journey is that it's brought me to you and helping others in sobriety. If you are listening to this, then you are either wanting to start your journey or currently active in recovery and just want to hear other people's experience, strength, and hope. Either way, we are here for you, and we are the community to help you through whatever part of your journey you are on. We have something for everyone. Now, let's get started on today's journey. What is up, and happy Wednesday. I am so excited to be back with you this week. This week we have my friend Brian. I met Brian 4.5-ish years ago on Twitter, and we were both in recovery at the same time, and he is just one of the kindest, sweetest, most down-to-earth people I have ever met in my entire life. So when I asked him to be on the podcast, I was really excited that he accepted. He is celebrating his 9-year anniversary today. We recorded on his 9-year anniversary. So happy 9 years, Brian, on October the 25th. We are going to hear a little bit about his story, what he is doing now, and what his hope is for the future. He also has a daily blog that he writes, and I'm going to link that onto the website so that you can go on there and follow it. It is a WordPress blog, and he also has an Instagram that you can follow, and he does these little daily videos, and they are just phenomenal. And I actually do include them in my daily readings because he has so much inspiration and he has so much knowledge. He really has connected with his higher power in his program, and he works those principles and he works those steps, and his process and the way he thinks is just absolutely astounding. So without further ado, here is myself and Brian. There is really no editing because this is a conversation between two people, and I really want you to hear the context and the way that we speak and the way that we work through our problems. I don't want to edit too much out of that because I want you to see what works for us because we believe that it can work for you. But I did want to say congratulations. Are you excited about your 9 years?
Yeah, I mean, every year obviously is a milestone, but it just feels like some days it feels like I'm, just started
Yes.
sobriety, and then some days it's like feels like I haven't ever
Yeah.
drank before, that kind of thing. So I mean, it's always emotional. There's a lot that goes into it. Obviously, every day is, it's not something you just commit to 10 years ago and then you don't have to work. It's not something like that. So
Right.
yeah, it's just emotional. That's kind of the word to use, I would say.
I think that once I hit like the 1, 2, 3s, and 4s, those are like such a huge milestone. And then 5 was like, oh my God, I'm really into this. And then like 6 and 7, I was like, oh, I guess I'm really doing this. And then as I stared down the barrel at 10, I was like, and once I got to 10, I was like, oh my God. And then I started seeing everybody else's sobriety, and the guy on Saturday had 43 years. I know.
Yeah,
I was like,
it's crazy.
oh my gosh. I was like, I want 43 years. So you're right. It's super emotional. So I'm really excited. Does anybody, like, I know this might sound really stupid and maybe a Virgo girl thing, but does anybody do anything for you? Does your mom say anything? Does Nicole say anything? Like, how do you celebrate your sobriety date?
My mom, she definitely will obviously call me, text me, kind words. And then, I mean, we'll get together next weekend for the Vikings game, and she'll cook food, and we'll kind of spend time together. That's kind of the reward. My sister every year gets me a coin.
Awesome.
So every year of sobriety, she mails me one from Florida. Um, so that's cool. Kind of a little tradition there to open that up when, right around the time. I don't know. For me, it's mostly just being by myself and like, relaxing. And I like that. So, um, I like time to myself.
That's all for I do
I mean,
too.
I have to work or I have to see people all the time, so it's like,
Right.
I just like to chill out.
No, I am the exact same way. I do like when I hang out with people or when I want to be around people, I go hard, but then I like hermit for the next 2 or 3 months. I'm like, nope, I'm good.
Oh yeah.
I,
Yeah. It's
I snap
incredible.
people
I mean,
now. I'm
yeah,
totally fine.
it's like my friends know that I'm still exist. So that's all I need them.
Right, exactly. Well, thank you for doing this. I really want this to kind of be casual, but I do have
Oh
some
yeah.
things I'm super interested in. And obviously, for me, part of the program is hearing other people's stories. So I would really like to, as much as you want to disclose, because this is a public platform,
Oh
um,
yeah.
I would like to kind of hear about when you knew for you, and you can lead up to it, which is fine. When did you know that it's either sobriety, death, or incarceration? Like, what was the moment? Or did you have one moment, series of moments, or was it against your own moment that someone told you, okay, it's time?
Yeah. I mean, I was a late starter as far as drinking goes. I really didn't get into partying until I was 19. But when I say I got into it, I really got into it. But there was never really. I mean, I feel like at first it was, well, we're partying. This is what kids do. Drink, and then all of a sudden you get to be like 21, 22, 20. You start to you can't really use that while we're young. Young and dumb kind of thing. Um, but I would take like months off at a time. I'd take a month off here, a month off there, mostly because, I felt like I was overdoing it, but it was never like permanent. It was kind of like, oh, just give your body a rest. If that was from throwing up blood or whatever, just kind of gets scaring,
Oh my gosh.
kind of scaring myself into it,
Oh,
Um,
wow.
but that 31st day would always be me going to the liquor store, like, okay, I did it. It was never,
it was your
yeah,
reward.
it was my validation of I don't have a problem. But I always say this to my for my friends or anyone I talk to. I'm like, if you have to prove you don't have a problem, chances are you do have a problem.
Right. If it needs
um
explanation, there's an issue.
yeah. If you have to quit something for a month, yeah, you probably have a problem.
Yeah.
um but yeah, I was I mean, yeah, like I said, it was month here, month there. But I mean, I was never like I need to drink all the time. Like it wasn't like wake up in the morning and eat. I was more of a weekend. Drink as from Thursday to Saturday. It was like I would drink as much as most people would. Probably in 2 weeks, I
You
guess you could
binged
say.
it.
Yeah, and I was in a relationship for it was like on and off for 7 years. And she's a saint for sticking around that long. But we would always be great, and then the weekend would come, and I would do something, say something, whatever it was, and um, you know, fast tracking. It was basically the same thing. Like we would try to make it work, it wouldn't work because of stuff that I did or said or whatever, and then we get back to a good place. I mean, it was always the best when I'd take those sober breaks because she's like, wow, I can actually like hang out with you and have a conversation with you. And, you're not passed out on the floor or whatever, whatever she was used to.
Right.
But I was just never in a place where nothing mattered, nothing mattered more than like the party. I was so obsessed with going out and socializing and drinking and, having fun, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And the details there aren't really any details. I mean, it was literally that for 7 years. I mean, we just did the same story over and over again,
Yeah.
And then
Was it the acceptance? Was it the socialization? Was it the
yeah,
friendships? What?
it had to do with high school. So middle school was great. I had a great time in middle school. It was fun. And then high school, I like gained weight. Weight is a big, like weight is a big topic. Obviously, in high school, you go from being the king in 8th grade to being nothing in 9th grade, basically, because you run. You where we were, it was 6th through 8th grade. was middle school, then ninth grade was high school.
That's how it is in Virginia here too.
So, I mean, I was just always so shy, and like I would always think worst case scenario. So like no one likes me, whatever. And I went through that all through high school. I was like not popular, shy. I mean, I always say I wasn't popular, but I never talked. So who knows if anyone even wrote or liked me. I always go back. I write about this a lot, but senior year, there was a girl in one of my classes. We do yearbooks, right?
Yep.
So you pass it around, whatever. And this girl in my class, I think her name was Kylie, I think, and she wrote something in my book, and it's too bad you just sat there.
Oh my
God! But I always reflect now, and I'm like, that kind of sums it up though, because that's exactly what I did. And I sat there, but I also like made it into a negative, like it was everyone else's fault, not my fault.
Disease of
like
perception.
I wasn't proactive in getting to know people. I just assumed everyone didn't like me, that kind of thing. But yeah, so the summer after high school, I, completely changed as far as like a body transformation, whatever. And I've been able to, be consistent with that. How long? God, I don't even want to think about when I graduated, but you know what I mean.
I got you. Let's not go there.
Yeah. So, I had that happen, and then 19, girls started to be interested in me, this kind of thing, so it was like, oh, wow. And then going out to the club or the bar, whatever it was. And then girls liking me, I almost felt like I was making up the 4 years of high school, like after high school, you know what I mean? Because all my friends were partying, had girls, and I was just kind of like playing video games and smoking cigarettes and, not doing really anything. So I think that definitely had a lot to do with it though, that like, oh man, all the stuff I wanted to do in high school, I can do it now. And then, kind of got crazy. But anyway, so back to the girl I was seeing, she, so April of 2012, I got a job offer in Iowa. So yeah, I know. It was a cool place though, where I was working.
Okay.
But it was West Des Moines, so it's a really nice area down there. But so yeah, we hung out a night in April, and it was never. I don't think we went into it as like this was it, because we'd always do that before, like, take care, I love you forever, but this isn't going to work.
Right.
We're never going to talk again or try again. We did that so many times before. But yeah, so she came over, we stayed up all night just talking about, 7 years basically. And that time that was the last time I've seen her, was that night. So,
oh, wow.
And like we've talked here and there, like, I hope you're doing well, like back, a little bit like that, but nothing obviously, like it was. But yeah, so that happened, packed my car up, moved to Iowa. And we did, even when I first moved there, we even fell back into it though. She's like, I'm going to come and visit, all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, yeah, we can make this work. And I'm really glad that it didn't, because obviously in hindsight, it's a good thing. But yeah, so I was in Iowa and doing the same old thing, met people, always going to the bar, just having a good time. And anyway, so I come back to Minnesota. I usually came up like Saturday night just to go to the Vikings games, like 4-hour drive. So I'd drive up after work, get here at night, go out with my friends, go to the game Sunday, wake up early Monday and drive back to Iowa. That was like, but I just wanted to party, so I didn't care.
Right.
But so that happened, for a while, whatever was going on in 2012. And they had 2 games. So they played Sunday, Arizona, then again Thursday night against Tampa Bay, and they were both home games. So I'm like, well, I'll come up Sunday like I usually did, and then I'll just stay, like take vacation days, whatever, and then stay Thursday and go back Friday. And it was like, okay. So this was 2 games, in 4 days. So it was like, I can't wait to party, all this. Yeah, you know what I mean? So Sunday comes and goes, it was normal. Like, it was actually 2012. So my buddy Dave and I, wore Romney and Obama masks to the game because it was right around the election.
Oh my God.
Everyone absolutely loved it, by the way.
That's
Probably wouldn't get
hilarious.
away with that. Probably wouldn't get away with that now, but
No, you would be very sick. I'm just telling you now. In this
um,
economy, Brian.
yeah. But yeah, so that happened, the first game was good. And then Thursday night, I met up with a buddy around 12 noon and, started drinking like we always did. And then the game, I don't even know how we got in. Like, by the time we were getting into the game, it was like I was,
You were
on one.
blitzed.
I was on one, as the kids say these
Yes.
days. But yeah, it was just like at the game, I remember kind of, putzing around there for a little bit. And then my buddy Nick got kicked out. So I'm trying to find him, and he's like, I'm in the parking garage. So meet him out there, and we get home. We get back to his house, and his roommate is there, and he's like, "Oh, I'm headed to the bar to watch the rest of the game." So we just, went there with him. Got there, had food. I don't even think I drank anymore, honestly. After that, I don't even remember. But we were there, and I had this weird feeling, like not like a numbness, from
Yep.
like down, up to my head.
Yep.
And I just remember reaching for Shane, his arm, and like waking up and I was on the ground. And he was like on top of me, wasted, like, are you okay? Like beating, like panic mode, whatever. And
Right.
apparently I was white as a ghost. I vaguely, I mean, I remember everything, obviously waking up,
Right.
being like, and then the bouncer like helped me to the ambulance. I was in an ambulance, which was cool.
I like.
I just remember my buddy trying to climb in, and they're like, "Are you sober?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm fine." And they're like, "Take a breathalyzer." He's like, "No, I'm not sober."
No, hard pass.
Yeah. So basically, got to the hospital, dehydrated, whatever was going on. But that was it. When I lost my dad in 2006 to drugs and alcohol, and I just had a memory of that, like holding his hand in the hospital as he's brain dead from drugs and alcohol. He was 56 years old, really young when he passed away. But I just had a memory of that, thinking of like him being there, but not being there, that kind of thing. And I knew that was it. Like that for me, I just didn't want to end up like him. That was kind of my motivation, was to right there. So when I left the hospital, made my drive back to Iowa in the morning, Googled like, AA meeting in Iowa. Like I had never been to one. I was always the type of person that was like, oh, I'm not one of those people. I don't need to go. I don't have a drinking problem, always. I mean, denial is such a big part of it.
Oh, it's huge.
So yeah, there's a place, it was oddly enough called the White House, and it was on Pennsylvania Avenue in Iowa, which was funny. But I went,
perfect.
I went to the meeting, sat down, they went around, and I'm Brian, alcoholic. That was the first time I had ever said it. And I really didn't even make it through my little spiel without, crying, because it was like, holy shit, all this is happening. But yeah, I said that. I said, I'm here because I don't want to end up like my dad. And that was it. That was my like reaffirming my commitment to that. That was it.
Right.
And, I went to a few meetings down there, but I really found like my peace and my way in writing and in church. Like my faith has been the biggest part of my recovery. I mean, hands down, it's been that, and writing has been such a consistent thing, and I feel like in recovery, the biggest thing is to find what works for you, and continue to do that every day. So, you obviously, we know each other. So like with my blog, there's 3,000, I write one every single day.
Which is just mind-blowing to me, because let's be honest about how inconsistent alcoholics and addicts are, and how insane it is to even conceptualize that, we're going to make it through tomorrow, right? But now you are going to wake up every single morning, and you are going to find time to not only vlog for 5 minutes and 38 seconds, but you're also going to do a whole vlog throughout the day. And that is some consistency, and that is amazing. And I think it's interesting that you brought that up, because I actually have found myself on the sober side of not TikTok, Twitter. And it's interesting because it's a bunch of different people. And a lot of people actually I have found don't go to AA. And so for me, that's a little different. It's not that they don't subscribe to the steps or whatever, but they don't go to AA. So I'm very interested because that's such a huge thing for people. I want to hear about not that AA didn't work for you, but you said that your faith and writing and your vlogging is a really big thing. So tell me how you even came into writing that every day, because journaling is really, really an important step in number 11, where we talk about meditation and prayer and our conscious contact with our higher power. So take me through your faith and through how that worked out in your blogging.
Okay. My faith is 2013. It's actually a funny story. So, well, there's some irony in it actually, but I was sober cabbing a bunch of friends on St. Patrick's Day, 2013, and one of the girls, I was sober cabbing. We ended up dating each other. Random, how random is that? Anyway, so her family had attended this church, and obviously we started dating. So she invited me, and I had never been a church person minus holidays. Like my mom would be like, "It's Christmas, we have to go." I'm like, "Okay."
You have that one Christmas outfit hanging in the closet.
Yeah. The one holiday outfit, yeah. But yeah, so I was like, okay. I mean, for her, definitely, of course,
right. Anything for Carol.
And it was getting there, and it wasn't traditional, like the pastor like standing up there and like, that's how I would, used to going to, not with music, like live music and all. It was so different, obviously than what I was used to. The music was awesome. And the message seemed more like geared towards, now, like towards society, what the problems that we deal with or struggle with every day.
Yep.
The message wasn't just like read word for word out of the Bible and, you're trying to like figure out what they're talking about.
You're going to hell. Sorry for you.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. So it resonated with me, and, I've been going ever since. I was baptized in 2017. I got rebaptized essentially, which was a big thing for me because obviously everything that has changed in my life was a big part of that. Kind of washing away, who I was and, kind of going into who I'm becoming, that kind of thing. But yeah, it's just always been like I have routine. I'm very routine. So I like prayer, in the morning, at night. When I wake up, I have a book, actually. It's called The Bible in 366 Days. So each day it has a different part of the Bible, and you just read that
cool.
day. And that for me is something that is a lot less intimidating than like having the whole Bible. Like, where do you begin? Where do you start? That kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it just makes it easier for me to resonate, with what I'm reading, focus on what I'm reading. Cause I'm just one of those people. I've always been like, had anxiety, whatever you want to, all that stuff. So when you have like a whole thick book, it's like, do I read? Then you feel like you're not reading enough. Are you? It was just always confusing as far as where to dive in, where to start, what, all this stuff. So this book that's down to the day. So I wake up, say a prayer, open to this day, have a cup of coffee and read it every morning like that. And then obviously my blog, the video, and then I have a book that's like a spiritual book at night. That's the same way. It's just divvied up by the day. So I read that before bed. Like I have to do these things or like my day wouldn't even make sense. Like I've gotten into such a routine that it gets me through, obviously choosing not to drink is another part, that's you wake up and you're like, guess what? I'm not going to do today, drink. And then you kind of go from there,
Right.
That's a big thing. But the writing was really just by chance. I think I was about 500 days into it, 560 days into it or something like that. And I was just so, like my mind was full. Like I didn't know, at least when I drank, I could forget about stuff for a week or 2 weeks. I didn't really care.
Right.
But now like everything I had to process, everything that I screwed up everything that I said the wrong, it was just all there, it was all, I had nothing.
I apologize for what.
And
Okay.
oh yeah.
Nope, you're fine.
Um, so that, and I just needed an escape, somewhere to write stuff down. So I just made a WordPress account and started writing, and that I've been doing it ever since.
Is it usually like, okay, so for me, this podcast came at a really interesting time. I have been talking to a friend of mine who lives out in Washington, and she had made mention that I have all these really interesting stories, and she likes learning about addiction from me and things like that. And I had previously talked to a couple of other friends who said that, we really like hearing from you. And I was like, okay. And, my friend actually runs podcasts out on the West Coast. And so she helped me set it up. And it came at a really interesting time because I found in this process for me, there was things that were happening in my life that I truly had no control over. Things that were happening to me in the moment that this podcast actually has started helping me process as I say them out loud. And so I think it's really kind of cool that you're saying your mind is full. So when I do this podcast, I'm starting with the 12 steps only because I think that is important to the whole process. I think that's what's needed. But for me, there's also times when I want to express how I feel or what works for me or what's on my mind, just like we would in a meeting. So, how do you, 3,000 different days, different topics, like how do you think of what to write? Do you pray on it? Is it on your heart? Is it something you're dealing with? Like, how does that come to you?
Well, I like to, I kind of get fixated on certain like poets or authors, whatever. But I don't, the topics I find, so I'll like, whoever it might be, like Tolstoy, for example, if I see like a list of quotes from him, whatever, I pick up the quote and then use my experiences with, like, take the quote and then write about how it relates to me.
Oh my God. That is
So
so
like,
cool.
C.S. Lewis, whoever, you just get a topic that resonates with me, and then I'll write my version of the quote. If that makes sense. My version,
Yes.
like how it relates to me.
It's kind of
Yeah.
like the little daily reflections books that we have for AA, and As Bill Sees It. It's kind of like your own daily reflections, or As Bill Sees It. You take a quote and you just
Yeah.
make it your own.
Yep.
That is so awesome. That's really, really cool. So you are in school for addiction counseling, correct?
Yes,
Okay,
correct.
so what is the overall, obviously we know what the overall goal is, you want to help people in addiction, but this was always my biggest step back, was I'm an empath, and so I take things on. I haven't worked this program emotionally well enough to be able to handle other people's addiction. And I haven't been able to really get to the point where I don't want it more than they do. So, what is your overall goal, and what are things that you think you've learned through school that you might not have through your own personal addiction?
Well, the biggest thing for me has been, obviously I've met people, Instagram, Twitter, whatever, in recovery. But the biggest shock for me has been, the realization of, like, there's crazy, like, compared to what my story is, or the next person's story is, like, there's going to be things that, like, are unimaginable to me right now,
Yes.
that people come in with. And that's the biggest thing for me, is like processing that, because I know, I mean, I've watched enough, intervention, or, all those different kinds of shows to kind of,
Yep.
like, well, prepare myself in a way for, like, what's possible, like what happens.
Oh, I like that.
But I just don't, I mean, obviously until I'm in the room and this is happening, I won't really know the kind of shock value of it. But yeah, it's exciting for me because I know like how much it means to me, my recovery.
Right.
And I don't want to, I know it's obviously about helping. It's not telling them what to do. That's, I think there's a common misconception, like with a addiction counselor, like, oh, they have all the answers for me. And I tell people, um, all the time, I'll get messages, how do you do it? How did you do this? How did you do that? And I always have the same answer. I'm like, I'm not here to tell you how to do it. I'm just telling you that you can.
I really like that. That gives me a completely different perspective that I didn't even think of, because my sponsor asked me to, well, she didn't really ask me. She told me I was going to be going to a halfway house and running women's meetings there. And even after 11 years, after starting the podcast, after talking to you and a couple of other friends in recovery, I asked her, I was like, what if I screw it up? And she's like, wait, what? And I'm like, what if I tell them to do the wrong thing? What if I say the wrong thing? She's like, all you're there to do is share what worked for you, is share your experience, strength, and hope. And so I think it's really interesting that you said, I'm not here to tell you what to do, it's how to do it, and that you can do it. And so for me, that's really reassuring, because I think with everything in life, we're given instructions, right? Your boss gives you instructions, your spouse tells you when to pick things up, your teachers, we've got all these instructions. And so granted, we have the book of AA, but there should be instructions. Do this every day. Don't do this every day. We get back to that structure, but there's really no structure to sobriety. It's a suggested program, and it's what works for you. And I love the fact that you said that your faith is really important, because this has been a big concern for me. I'm also finding that a lot of people in AA are agnostic or don't subscribe to God. And it's one thing that I've been scared of, to really address my faith, because I don't want people to think, oh, you're in AA, so you believe in God. So I'm really struggling with that. And I love the fact that you're saying that you have faith and you got rebaptized, because that means the world to me. So I'm just curious, in your experience with this, are you nervous to address agnostics? Are you nervous to address the disease? Because your faith is important to you. So I'm actually looking for help here myself. How do you handle that?
My whole thing, okay, so my whole thing with faith is I know, you obviously, like society wise, it's always like, oh, you get lumped together with Christians, like I'm Christian. So
Yes.
you get lumped together. Well, all Christians are the same. All these are the same. All, whatever. But for me, what I've learned is that what other people think about me, what other people do has nothing to do with me. Like I know where I am in my faith, and I know what I believe in, and I know what keeps me going, and I know what I, surrendered my life to. I know who I surrendered my life to, and that's where it ends for me, because I'm going to tell you how I feel and what I believe in, and that's up for, I mean, I don't care what other people think.
No, you don't. And that's one thing that I absolutely love and admire about you. Like, I'm still at the point, like, in my sobriety, even 11 years later, where I'm like, oh my God, someone breathed the wrong way. They hate me. So
Yeah.
I'm just an overly sensitive person. That's how I am. So I'm getting there. But I love the fact that for you, it's just like, this is my faith. This is what I believe in. This is what worked for me. It may not work for you.
Exactly. That has nothing to do with me. So like when people are like, I don't believe in God, I'm like, why? That has nothing to do with me. And I am not in a place to say anything about them,
Right.
because if that's the way they feel, who am I to say anything about it?
Right. So in the
And
program,
it's,
oh, go ahead.
yeah. I mean, for me, like I said, I went through so many years of my life, trying to say the right thing, trying to do the right thing, trying to fit in, trying to get validation from people, cool people, as we used to call it, the cool kids or whatever. But now, being at a place in my faith where like the only person, like, I shouldn't even say person, the only being that I care about, like as far as judgment goes, is God. Jesus is the only person. Like that's it. It starts and ends there. Like anyone else, they can say whatever they want. I mean, and they even get more mad when you are like, God bless or whatever. People get more mad when you're not mad about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like when you just like laugh or smile, like people get more upset when you don't. And I'm like, hey, like I said, I'm not going to lose sleep at night over what so and so thinks, because I know what I think and I know what I believe in. So,
and that's such a huge sticking point. I think it's why you're going to make such an amazing counselor, because you kind of just, you're stuck in who you are, and you're not going to change. You're not going to change for anybody. You're not going to be a different person. And I don't think you've ever been a different person. I've never seen, in the 4 or 5 years I've known you, you've never wavered. You've never changed. And I think that's really comforting. And I think it shows that this program absolutely can work. And I think that it shows the program doesn't have to necessarily be within the walls either. It can be what works for you. So
yeah.
I really, really appreciate you taking time to talk to me, to hang out with me. And I actually have a ton of other questions. So can we do this again next month when I get a few other things going?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Just let me know.
I would really like that. Because for me, I went from one relationship to the next. And so I do have questions on being single in sobriety, dating in sobriety, like being able to, I started out very codependent, so I've never been on my own. So what do those things look like? Because I think that's something that a lot of people don't think of either. When the marriages end, when the 7-year relationships end, when the parents pass away, you have to do this on your own. Like,
oh, I know what you mean.
So I would love to have you back on and discuss that. And if that's something you're willing to do. And
oh yeah, of course.
Awesome. Yay. Okay, well, thank you so much, Brian, for taking the time, and I will get this downloaded and uploaded. And since it's your anniversary week, I really want to get it out this Wednesday, so I'm putting out this week's podcast for next week. So tell your friends. So
appreciate it. Thank you.
Not a problem. I'm going to hang up now, and you have a good night.
You too. Thanks.
Bye, honey. All right, fam. I hope that you really enjoyed today's episode. I am so grateful that all of you are here. I am also extremely grateful for Brian, his experience, strength, and hope. And I really wanted you to see through interviews and meeting new people that we all have different stories. As you could tell, Brian's story was a lot different from Tyler's story and a lot different from my story. So there is not one right or wrong story for any one of us. The point is that we are willing and we are wanting to recover. And I hope that this episode gave you some faith and some hope and a message that you needed to hear. And along with I am grateful for Brian, I am grateful for you. I am grateful for your friendship and being there for me and for allowing me to enter into your life. We have vulnerabilities and we have walls up, but I really believe that as we continue to work this program, we really want to carry the message to other addicts and alcoholics who still suffer. And Brian, you are definitely the epitome of what that means. You truly do carry the message, and I am consistently in awe of you. And so thank you again for your time. I hope that you have a great rest of your week, family. And as you can tell, I can't talk because I've been talking for an hour. A great rest of your week, family. Next week, we will continue on actually in this fashion. We'll be talking about step 11 and our conscious contact with God. So I could not be more thankful that Brian was on this episode. He is exactly what we needed to slide right into next week. And you have a good rest of your week and weekend. Thank you so much for hanging out with us on this episode of A Sober Girls podcast. I hope we were able to help you on your road through recovery, or if anything, help you understand that if you are not active in recovery but want to be, that you are not alone. We are here for you. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and follow us wherever you listen to your podcast so you don't miss another episode. Also, you can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at A Sober Girls Pod, and online for show notes and other information about sobriety at asobergirlspodcast.podbean.com. I hope that you have a great rest of your week, and until next time, fam, be well.